believe we're doing this right. This is our first time going live, but we wanted to try to change some things up. We're from Grief to Growth. I'm Kelly Doherty, and this is Karen Arnold. And we met actually probably almost 2 years ago now, I guess, because we were co authors in a book called The Grief Experience Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and um, acceptance, resilience, and connection. Botched that there, I think. But we've been doing this show for a little bit, just answering grief questions, and decided that maybe today we'd go live and just try things a little differently and just share a little bit about why we've done this and what we're kind of hoping to do in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think on YouTube we have what, close to like 65 videos now, I
I,
think that people could find through our YouTube channel. So
I think
um,
so.
yeah, doing all different types of topics that could be relating to grieving people. And I think that's really the idea, is just trying to reach people and provide that little bit of additional support. I think, as we often say, wherever you can grab those pieces of support from, a podcast, a book, a YouTube video. TikTok, I think, has a lot now. We've been putting some things on there too. So we're just kind of continuing what we've been doing, but maybe just in a slightly different format. But I know, Kelly, you and I had talked today about like what we thought we would want to share with people. And I know a lot of times with grief, there's like so much to talk about. There's so many layers, there's so much complexity that you end up getting to very complicated and deep emotions like apathy and things that are hard to understand, hard to explain. And those are all really important things. But I think sometimes we also need to remember to sort of come back to the basics, start at the beginning, think about what are the things that I can control, the things that I can't. And every day, I think that's something that probably all of us should be reminding ourselves of, but especially those that are grieving, because your head gets filled with so many different thoughts, feelings, emotions. It can be very muddy very quickly. And so I think all the time people are looking like, what can I do? That's the thing, that kind of to do part of it. People want to feel like they're participating somehow in their wellness and getting themselves better. So I think those action tasks, if you can find them, are really important. So what do you think would be like some good examples of that?
Well, it's interesting that you're bringing this up because I just literally spent the morning working on a training that I have coming up on for therapists, and it's on continuing bonds, which is certainly very important, right? With grieving people, is to find that how do you keep that ongoing connection with your loved one, right? But the session that I was working on was movement and grief, right?
Okay.
And so the research is, I mean, if you saw the pile of research that I have right here, right next to me, is kind of insane. But really talking about how movement can be so beneficial, right? Grief can feel so exhausting, and there's so many things that can cause health wise. We've talked a little bit about the new book called The Grieving Body by Mary Frances O'Connor that just came out. And, in it, she really talks about what grief does to us on a physical side, right? The heart issues, the blood pressure issues, the immune response, the increased inflammation in our body, all of these things. And when we're grieving, we're so exhausted, we don't want to move, right?
Yes.
And so but that's one of the worst things for us, right? We really do need to move. And it actually shows that people that engage in physical activity actually live longer and their blood pressure comes down from the grief, and how important that is. And so I think, like a lot of times we talk about, what are the things that you really need to start with to make
Yes.
sure that you are taking care of yourself. And I do think even just small movements, even a 5-minute walk, can really be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's hard to get moving. I think one of the things that's challenging in grief is just the lack of motivation. And the things that would have motivated a person before to be healthy. I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to be able to run around with my grandkids. Like, people lose a lot of interest in those things. And, especially if they've been a caregiver for a long time, they've probably been neglecting some of their own needs, their dental appointments, things like that. So to try to
Mhm.
get back into a habit of maybe putting yourself first. So that's why when I say basics, I really do mean basics. Like, what are you eating? How well are you sleeping? As you said, the gentle walk and movement. We're not talking about people like you have to join a gym and you have to get on some sort of specific diet program. I think it's just what you were talking about with the exhaustion. And that is, to me, universally, the one symptom that I think every single grieving person experiences. And it's that combination of, physical exhaustion, probably, but absolutely the mental exhaustion that goes with
Mhm.
it. So we have to think of where are our sources of fuel? Like, where can I get fuel to not maybe feel so exhausted, or at least to get a little bit further with the things that I do have to do? And so that's where food comes in. And it's not about trying to deprive anybody. I think people feel like, who cares? I'm going to eat what I want. I'm going to eat what tastes good. I want to eat what's easy. We all like those things. Um, but we also know how we feel when we eat certain ways versus others. So that's what I try to help people kind of remember, that mindset about fuel, trying to get sleep is fuel, food is fuel. And the sleep is a tough one because everybody wants a good night's sleep. And if it were that easy, it would be that easy. So it does mean having to, I think, put some type of routine and effort in place. And I always say to people, just make sleep non-negotiable, that like, this is not okay. I got lucky and I had a good night's sleep, or I was unlucky and I had a bad night's sleep. Like, it's really something sometimes that we have to work at. But that's a tough one. That's a tough
It
one.
is, and actually, I just read, and I have to do a little on myself. I have to do more research on this, but CPBT. So, oh my gosh, so cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Actually,
Mm,
100% of bereaved individuals reported improvement with that modality. So that's promising. That's something that I want to look into a little bit more, and just to see what that means and what that looks like. But it's also about creating good sleep hygiene, right? Going back to the basics, not having the
yeah.
TV on, being off of your devices for an hour, not having caffeine after maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or even earlier for some people. I go to bed very early. So this is probably my last cup of tea for the day, but it's some of those things really, and you have to maybe try different things.
Yeah.
Maybe it's using, the Calm app. A lot of my grieving clients love the Calm app and the bedtime stories. A lot of them swear by that, and they've really have found that to be extremely beneficial. But when we're tired, when we're not getting enough sleep or even too much sleep, it just really screws up everything.
Yeah. I always say a bad night equals a bad day. So,
Hmm.
when someone tells me they're not sleeping, I'm like, well, then let's start there. Because really, until that gets a little bit better, you can't really expect anything during the day to be okay. I mean, it makes it very, very challenging. So yeah, I mean, I think the different apps that are out there are certainly helpful, having some kind of bedtime routine. I think also, I encourage people, I do a lot of journaling and stuff like that with people, but I encourage them to have like some paper, nearby, maybe do like a brain dump, just get it all out and make it a very ritualistic thing, that like, I am physically unloading all of this to lighten myself for sleep. And if something pops up, you can write it down, but then finally kind of shut it and say, that's it. It's enough for today. I can do all this tomorrow. I could think about
I
all
did
this
that
tomorrow.
2 nights ago.
Did you?
I
Good.
went into the bathroom and made a Post-it note, and I think something we've been working on was on that list.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I know if it's out of my brain, right? It's on
Yeah,
the paper, I know I won't forget it,
right.
and then that was a I was able to kind of get back into trying to fall back asleep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just your brain's going all day. Again, going back to the exhaustion, it's just from so much processing that's happening, and there's not a lot of room for anything else. It's just going, going, going. So it's very difficult to say to your brain, even though your body's tired and ready to sleep, the brain just doesn't seem to
Yeah.
stop. I do find for some people that gets a little bit better, with the passage of time. But if there's things that you could do to help it along early on, it's absolutely worth trying. And I think I do, and I'm guilty of this too, but we all have that tendency to be like, I tried that. I tried one of
Mhm.
those apps. I tried doing stretches before bed, didn't help. And it's like, no, we need to do these things. It's like
Exactly.
going into the gym and being mad I walked out and I wasn't 20 pounds lighter, like I have to keep doing these things. It's the repetition, it's the practice, it's the consistency. And that goes for a lot of things with our habits, but especially in grief too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, going back to what you originally started with, our grieving people that we work with, they want something to do, right? They want some tools. How can I help myself? I don't like the way I'm feeling. I want to feel better. And some of these things with grief is we have to learn to integrate our grief into our life, right? And that's not something that's like, okay, one session or one thing, you just do this and you're going to be okay. But it is looking at the whole person and looking at all the different areas of our life and how can you deal with the physical symptoms you're having? What does that look like? How can you deal with the emotional? How are you processing your grief? Are there those, stuck points or the derailers, or kind of, it's we do have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah,
And it isn't as simple as being like, just do this one thing. I wish it was.
I know.
I always say my magic wand is broken, unfortunately. But kind of thinking about what are some of the foundations, what are the basics, and starting with those, and then kind of trying to address some of the other things that are coming up grief wise.
Absolutely. And even as you get further along, if you find like, oh, I was doing okay and now I'm like kind of slipping again, take a look at those things. What are your
Mhm.
habits looking like? How have you been sleeping? Have you been eating okay? Have you been getting out enough and stepping away, from your responsibilities and taking a little bit of a break? I mean, that's the other thing too. I think we have a tendency to have a couple of good or healthy habits along the way, but then something happens and we stop doing those things.
Mhm.
And then we kind of like almost forget about them or find it hard to
Mhm.
get back to. I don't know why. I think it's sometimes easier to start a healthy habit than it is to go back to a healthy habit. I think that, I don't know if that's just me, but I think the novelty of trying something new is enough to keep me interested and to keep me trying it. But going back to something is sometimes a little harder. But
Yeah.
it's worthwhile if it worked, for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. Hopefully, this
Yeah,
all
we'll
worked and
see.
this was out there. But, please comment on our videos. Let us know what you'd like for us to talk about. We're going to try some different things coming up, maybe doing more lives, maybe doing, some shorts and some videos and things like that, just to kind of be able to help more people. Our goal, I think, and our passion is to be able to provide some support to grieving individuals. And I know I love speaking to Karen, and we could talk all day long
We
about
could.
grief stuff. Not everybody in my life wants to, so I'm grateful for this time to be able to. But I also we all want to be here for all of you as well. So
Yeah,
thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon. Take care.
thank you.
All right, we'll see how that goes. If that even went up
Okay.
there.